Hello, this is a tutorial on how to submit extensions and modifications to applications that have existing approval. So let's first talk about what we mean by an extension versus a modification. In either case, we're talking about applications that already have approval. So if you're interested in submitting a totally new application, please see our tutorial called Submitting a New Application located on the IRB Portal homepage. Now, for most applications that come through the IRB expedited review process, approval is issued for 1 year. As your expiration date approaches for your approval at that 1 year mark, if you want to continue doing your study, you'll need to request a simple extension of your initial approval. Federal guidelines require that we take a look at your study again at least yearly, even if nothing has changed. So you'll need to go through this process at least once per year. This simple request for an extension of approval is what we refer to as an extension. At any time while your study has current valid approval, you may also need to make changes to your study. You may need to add an additional recruiting technique, add some new or updated measures, change some of your stimuli or parts of your intervention. Whatever the case may be, these kinds of changes must be reviewed and approved by the IRB before you implement them. When you need to make these kinds of changes, we call that a modification request. For either case, you'll use the same process in IRB Portal version 1.6 that I will describe to you now. So first, log in to your Portal account and click Applications at the top left. Find the application that you want to extend or modify and click the Add Extension button to the right. So here I have approval for a study called Sample Protocol Title, the best research study ever. I'm going to click Add Extension. The Add Extension button pulls up a form that you can complete to request an extension or a modification. You'll simply complete this form as relevant to your particular situation. Here are a few things to note. First, most applications requesting an extension were approved through expedited review. In fact, if your project was approved under our exempt process, your approval does not expire. Although, if you make substantive changes to your study, you'll still need to contact us to get those changes approved. Second, if you're not changing anything about your study, you'll select this first radio button here. This will alert the moderators and reviewers that nothing has changed and your extension of approval should come back fairly quickly. Please note, however, that even if nothing has changed, we require you to upload a clean, current copy of your consent form for our records, and there are a couple of questions about your study progress that you'll need to complete as well. For example, research status, as well as adverse events. And then down here is where you will attach a clean copy of your consent form. If you are making modifications to your study, you'll need to click the second radio button up at the top here, and then tell us about those changes in the fields below. For example, if any investigators or co-investigators have been added or changed, you'll tell us about that in this area right here. And be sure that all investigators that are added still have valid certificates of ethics training. Or if you've decided to add a new measure to your study, you'll tell us about that in project updates or changes. For example here, have the instruments, measures, or materials changed since the protocol was last approved by IRB? If I click yes, a box appears so that I can explain these changes. I am adding a new measure called whatever the case may be. Any new measures that have been added or stimuli that have been changed or intervention protocols that have been changed, please be sure to upload those documents or explanations of those changes in the attachments area at the bottom of the application. Federal guidelines also ask us to keep track of any adverse events that have been associated with studies that we approve. So be sure to think carefully about if there have been any complaints about your research or if you've had any problems, and report those to us in this section here. Finally, we ask you one more time just to remind you if you have uploaded a current version of your consent form or a modified consent form if that's the case for you, and if you've uploaded all additional or revised materials, in this section here, additional documentation. And again, to do that, you're going to go to Browse in the Attachments section. You're going to select the file that you need. Here it's a sample consent form. You're going to open and then you're going to hit Upload. And when you do that, this new document or current document is associated with your extension and modification request. Once you've completed all the application fields, click Save. And your extension and modification request has been submitted. To check and make sure your extension or modification request went through, go back to Applications and check the application that you just submitted should now say Submitted, your first extension or modification. And that's it for requesting extensions and modifications through IRB Portal. This is a fairly new process that's been added to the portal, so if you have any questions or issues or something doesn't go through correctly, please, as always, feel free to email irb@gcsu.edu and someone will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you and good luck with your research.